Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Judith, for doing the opening affirmative prayer. So today it's about expecting the best and having higher expectations. Nancy. Back when this center was started in the 40s, there was a song that was sung, there was a passage that was in the program. We don't say it as much, but every once in a while we bring it in, and I'm sure a couple of the people in the audience remember it. We build a new tomorrow. Okay? We build a new tomorrow, we draw the pattern clear. We make our plan with wisdom, for mind is ever here. Our thinking makes our future, our actions pave the way. We build a new tomorrow on the patterns formed today. We clear the heart of hatred, we clear the mind of fear, we speak no word of censor of all we see or hear. With love to guard and guide us, with mind to light the way, we build a new tomorrow on the site we clear today. So my topic today is, I've had like several ideas, but it's really about having expectations, positive expectations. And somewhere along the way in my career, one of my friends, Danny, years ago in Florida said, you know, this whole teaching's about developing positive expectancy. And if you can do that, if you can really do that yourself, if you can really always have that within you, you're expecting the best, I mean, you really got half of the teaching down right there. Because our consciousness always is drawn to our history, you know, his story, her story. And so, drawing the pattern clear, speaking no word of censor of anything, you know, we see or hear. What's that about? It's about being positive, right? Remember Michelle Obama's statement, when they go low, we go high. It isn't just about what people are doing. It's really about that conversation you're having with yourself. Clearing your heart of hatred, clearing your mind where there's fear, having faith, knowing that every word you speak, or whatever you think about, is taking form on what we call the subjective side of life. There's a law that's working with you and for you. The thing is, you want to learn how it works, because if you don't, you know, those old thoughts, those old tapes that have been with us, it seems, from almost the beginning, are acted upon. It's blind that way. It just responds to us. But, you know, as you come into this teaching, you realize, okay, once you learn to meditate upon that, you realize there's power available for you that you can use. So you start to see how mind works, and you start to align yourself with the way it operates. And Ernest Holmes says, not only is there power for good in the universe, but you can actually use it. You can use it to your advantage. So we have a great thing here in this teaching. And we have this great thing, and because we have this great thing, we really ought to be able to expect more, which is today's title. We can expect more because we know we have this power that's available to us, and it acts upon our thoughts 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's just always there responding to us. So I'm working with a little bit of some of Raymond Charles Barker's talk, which was very similar, though I've taken out most of his stories. You know, and he had a similar theme going in one of his talks about having greater expectations. You know, you hear his quote in religious science often, Ralph Waldo Emerson, who said, hitch your wagon to the stars. Now, what do you think that he was really trying to tell us? You know, why have low expectations when you could actually, you know, dream what? A much bigger dream. We have lots of talks here where we talk about having bigger buckets. I think I've talked about that 5 times in the past 2 months. Or Louise Hayes, in her passage, would ask the question, you know, which we talk about also. She'll ask, what are you approaching the ocean of life with? And she will ask you to imagine you have a container. And notice what kind of container you have. And is it like a little thing, or is it something bigger, or is it some contraption you have imagined in your mind where you're connected, every cell in your body is connected to life? Because it's as simple as that. If you expect the best, and if you're developing positive expectancy across the board, then you're going to be looking away from conditions and circumstances that most people dwell upon. Most people worry about. Most people can't stop thinking about. But that isn't you. If you're in this teaching for any length of time, you're beginning to train yourself to look away from all the nonsense, and furthermore, not participate in the negative chatter, the gossip. Because, to the extent you get involved in that, that's your world. Wherever you talk negativity, and wherever you entertain it on television, or on social media, wherever you put your attention, okay, so you're building up your consciousness with all that. Are you happy with your life? Just the thing is always just look to your own life, because all your thoughts, if I were to do a class in this, usually I have a big whiteboard and I'll put a pyramid, an iceberg, and I'll put the top 10% as my conscious mind. I'm thinking, oh, hey, I'm wonderful, I'm great, I'm whatever I am, I'll have all my positive affirmations, right? That's the top, that's the active mind which selects the conscious mind. But beneath the water of this iceberg, we're going to call it, is your unconscious mind. And it's filled with what we call BS. If Shirley were here, she would call that blind spots. Our unconscious mind is filled with all the training of our lifetime and all the thoughts and beliefs. And that's kind of a mixed bag for most of us, meaning all the places where we say not good enough, we're not okay, something's wrong with us, it's all there inside of us, and it's been there for a lifetime. And here we are, good practicing New Thought students. We're learning our affirmations. I am whole, I'm complete, I'm wonderful, I'm in the right place at the right time, I love myself the way I am. That's all the things we say as we start working with this. And that's great. It is new thought. It's our conscious mind selecting new thoughts, and it's going into our unconscious. And the thing is, if our unconscious mind is filled with a lifetime of I'm not good enough, life is hard, life is rigged, it's all working against me, if you have a lot of that stuff going on within you, which usually is the training of our youth, which we've reinforced in 1,000 ways with every single loss we've suffered or imagined we've suffered, so all of that gets projected. Think of old tapes. These are all old tapes, and they're being projected upon the screen of your life. So I would draw a projector there, and I would have this, I would draw an image of an iceberg, and I'd show here's the power of the conscious mind with the new thoughts that are going into the subconscious. And when we do it, we're starting to neutralize some of the negatives, but we don't neutralize them all, especially if we do it in a haphazard way. And the total of that, which is kind of a mixed bag, gets projected, imagine the projector, upon the screen of your life. Your life is a reflection of your consciousness. It's just as simple as that. All that you know, all that you are, all that you think is being projected upon the screen of your life. Now, if you look to your life, I might say, what's playing at the movies? What's playing with you? Usually every Thursday I'll ask, what's it been like being you this week, Reverend Judith or Nancy? And it's never because I'm trying to get into your business. I can barely manage my own. It's just because whatever it is that's going on within you, your worries, your fears, your concerns, your affirmations, your good, the bad, the ugly, whatever it is, whatever is going on within you is being projected upon the screen of your life. In fact, it's creating your life. So Ernest Holmes says, you have power. It's within you, my goodness. You have all the power of the world. And where is it? Within you. You are an individualization of this power. What does that mean? Whatever God is, you are. Whatever God has, whatever source has, if you don't like the word God, You have. You have the ability to create a wonderful life. You have the ability to heal your life. You have the ability to change the orientation. It doesn't matter if it's been a lifetime of doing it another way. You have the ability always where? Here and now is the answer to that question. You always have the ability here and now to start anew. So when I started out with in Unity, probably something, I always say 20 years ago, it's probably 30 years ago by now. I started out at Unity, and Reverend Cameron back then said, the best kept secret of the ages is this God which is within you. People search for it where? Everywhere. They take trips. I used to be on planes and trains. I'd go to the latest and greatest, whoever's going to. The great guru. There's always a guru who's got a better way, and I used to find myself finding them because I was always looking for the answers, studying, reading all the books. And what you'll find after you read them all, and I think I've read a lot of them, is that guru is God in you. Okay? That's the best kept secret of the ages. You know, we don't have to fight over religion. It's kind of silly. It's rather stupid, actually. You know, because to have an opinion on another person's belief is really ridiculous. You know, and yet people have been fighting over these ideas throughout history. The thing we understand here is whatever power there is in everybody. I don't care if they're praying on a mountain, they're praying in front of a campfire, they're at an altar, they're at a synagogue, or in their mosque. What difference does it make? Whatever it is that they're aware of lives in the hearts of every single person that lives. You don't need a church. The churches are dying out all over the world for good reason. That thing that they're looking for is not in a church. It's within you. You know, it was said to me years ago, you know, you're standing on holy ground. You're sitting on holy ground. It's where you are. And the great news is it's within you. It's operating through you. You are an individualization of it, which means you are one with it. You have such potential. Ernest Holmes said, again, he said a lot of things. So first of all, there's an account downtown, a bank. It's got your name on it. Limitless funds for you to draw upon. So if I knew that, I better learn how to, I want to learn how to receive the limitless funds. Well, that's you. You have limitless ability, and you know all you have to do is learn how to work with it. Okay, learn how to withdraw. Learn how to use. So there's power for good in the universe greater than you, of which you are a part. Okay, so this power, this presence is in every human being that lives. Every human being is a sacred being. We have no business judging another human being in 1,000 years. It's none of our business to judge another human being. Everybody on the planet, however awful you might think they are, is doing the best that they can with the information, the understanding, and the awareness that they have. So listen, if we get that fact, then why are we talking about people? Why don't we just understand whoever they are, this is where they are? The American Indians tried to give you that message, you know? Don't walk what? Don't walk unless you've, how does it go?
Walk in your moccasins, shoes.
Yeah, no, you know, I have nothing to say. You know, people are doing what they're doing, you know, and it's like they were raised by different people, they were taught different things, you know, and see, what we do in this teaching is we stop going to that place where we have all these strong opinions about people, places, and things. And I've been so well taught, bring it back to yourself, Greg. 1,000 groups, it seems, always that. Bring it back to yourself and your creations. I would think, what do you mean by my creations? Well, the thing is, you're a little bit like, we joke in the classes, you're like Shakespeare because you're writing the play. You're assigning everybody their roles. You banish them from your kingdom eventually, or you'll bring in another person. So, you know, people come into your life It's no accident. People come in at the right time, in the right place. And everything in life is actually here for your spiritual growth, your expansion. And the people who grace our doorways and come into our lives in a way we really ought to thank everybody, even the people who upset us, because they're there to do what? You know, they're there for us to teach us something. And that's the thing, you know. You live in a world where everything comes to you by virtue of consciousness. All things come to you by consciousness. Even the stuff that'll scare you right out of your pants. It comes to you by virtue of consciousness. And you have within you the ability to think again, to choose again, and to start what we'll call a different train of causation. You have the ability to change your mind. It doesn't matter if you thought a certain way for 20 or 30 years. You have the ability to stop. You have the ability to stop that conversation and to start again. You have the ability to be here now. Be here now and just say, I release the need to think this way anymore. You have the ability to bring light into any situation. Religious scientists, New Thought students, really, really, really do not want to be a part of all the negativity. You know, we're here to, there's lots of expressions that can say it. We're here to practice the presence. What does that mean? We're here, once we get out of the fog of our stories, the stories of who's a son of a bee and who's ripped me off and who's done this and who's done that and on the bus and what son of a bee's done this or done that, you know, or what person's doing this or doing that, because all that's just kind of human stuff that we do. If we can just stop that and come to the place where we realize, my God, okay, this person, this situation, you know, I'm participating in this. I can stop all that racket. That would be what you learn from if you went to landmark education. We do a version of it here. If you study the 4 agreements, you'll learn it from there. It's stop the stuff that you're doing, the blaming, having resentments, because you aren't getting things your way. So you bring yourself back to a place, and you go into affirmative prayer, and you recognize that it is all good and it is all God. And you sit with that for a little bit. Now, why do I need to start getting all in a mess and start labeling and getting angry? Because your feelings will follow your thoughts. So if you start thinking negative thoughts about yourself or about others, and this is what people do, I'm not good enough, I don't do enough, you know, so that's all that negative chatter that Louise Hay talks about, which caused her to sell 60 million books. You know, how do you overcome all that negative chatter? Because the negative chatter you have going on within you, you also do towards other people. It's just the way it works. If you're spinning out there, see, if I see a person, they're always talking negatively about life or about the world and everything else, I know that they have a very low opinion of themselves. I don't say that to them. But whoever is always talking about the negatives of the world, I just know they have a very low opinion of themselves, because then they just project it upon life everywhere else. The people who are the true mystics, the people who are the lovers of life, you can think of them, I can think of them, I've reviewed a bunch of them recently for you. They're all lovers of life. They're not judging anybody. Look to Jesus. Who was he judging? I think he advocated turning the other cheek a few times, like almost endlessly. Why was he advocating turning the other cheek? I think he said, forgive them, Father, for what? They know not what they do. Why can't we aspire to something like that? Live our lives without all those strong opinions and understand, like Jesus, these people are doing what? The best they can with the consciousness they have. How am I? Where do I get off labeling and judging anybody, and I can't see anything wrong with myself? There's another biblical passage about, trying to see the speck in the other person's eye or what's wrong with them when we can't get the log that's lodged out of our own. So clearly in religious science, we understand that we do our work in consciousness. We do our work in mind. What does that mean? We work with ourselves is what that means. There's much to do. I don't care, I'm getting older, and I'm okay with that. But the fact is, you realize, my goodness, I'm no longer 50, no longer 40, no longer 50, no longer 60. And if Agatha were here, she would always say, she's doing her work where and with whom? Herself. That's the only place we really, if we're in this teaching truly, the only place we're ever working is on ourselves. The conversation that we're having every Thursday, it's probably the most important thing I ask the whole night. Well, what's it been like being you this week? If you were in a 12-step program, it's all about the inventories. The first step is an inventory. You're admitting you have a problem. Thank God you can see it. The fourth is you're doing an inventory of the things, the good, the bad, the ugly. Why? Because you want to see, first of all, the good that's in you, the bad meaning the stuff that you're doing that's self-defeating. And then the 10th step in the 12-step programs is to continue to take an inventory each day. So you don't keep acting out these negative things. You don't keep the negative conversation going about the most important person in the world, which is yourself. And you don't keep perpetuating that stuff upon others. So the 12 steps are absolutely amazing because they ask you to inquire within. Check yourself out. Because in the end, your whole life is about your consciousness. Your consciousness is playing out on that screen of your life all the time. Somebody liked a quote that I gave a couple weeks ago, and it's true. And when I was living in Florida, Mary Kurowitz, who was a practitioner down there, I was quite young, and she kind of captured me, which was a good thing, because I was a person that was always praying to a God above, and I was always praying for, please God, help me, and I'll never do this again, and I was always in those kind of prayers. Help me, save me, protect me, fix me, and all that type of thing. And Mary, the practitioner, you've heard me say this before, said, Greg, you were the child of a lesser God. And I said, what do you mean by that? And, she went on to explain. She said, you were always trying to become good enough. You were always praying to something outside of yourself. You were always looking for forgiveness, and it's always an outer process. And she said, sometimes your prayers were answered. Oftentimes you lost faith. It doesn't seem like your prayers were ever answered. And she says, as you become more acquainted with metaphysics, as you come into this teaching, she says, you're going to understand that the universe so completely loves you and adores you that it responds to your every single thought. It doesn't miss a one. So if like Ernest Holmes knew, that you have this power and you have a universe that responds to your every single thought, then why would you possibly, and how could you possibly get involved? You really you want to start paying attention to what your thinking is. You want to look away from the crap, or I should say it differently. You want to look away from the conditions, the garbage. You want to pay attention to where you put your attention. If you're glued to the television 24 hours a day, turn the damn thing off. Watch it less. Read a book. Take a walk. Call somebody up. Have a positive conversation. Meditate. Do something. There's unlimited ways, today that you have abilities to use all these technical things for great good. You can educate yourself. You can focus on positive things. That's one of the great things about life. You, being an individualization of God, you get to choose. You get to choose thinking the best. You get to choose and learn from the best. I spend a lot of time with YouTube. I look up exactly what I want type of thing I want to learn. I'm thrilled with all the things that I'm able to learn. You can turn on TED Talks. You can listen to our messages on Facebook, which play 24 hours a day. Same for YouTube. You have the ability to commune with great ideas, positive thinkers, You have the ability to lift yourself up so you can expect more. If you keep tuning into the same people and talking the same stuff that you've been doing, certainly it's your prerogative. It's entirely up to you. You can do that. But energetically, how do you feel when you're? I have some people that I talk to, and it's always what's wrong and what's missing. And it kind of like throws me. When I get off the phone, it takes a little bit of a while for me to get myself back on track. You want to be there for your friends. You want to be there for people who are going through tough times, right? I do, but I don't want to do it all the time. Okay? You're here to express life and to express life abundantly, to listen to what speaks to you in your quiet moments and start to follow that lead a little bit more. You're here to expect more. You're here to have more. And all the talks I've gleaned from Barker and all of the different authors, pretty much there's a suggestion from everybody that we came into this world to learn and to grow spiritually. And all of life goes forward by means of the creation, by means of, all of us. And so each of us came onto this planet, we were on some kind of a mission, I'll call it a sacred mission. You've heard people ask, well, who have you come here to be? And usually when we're children, there are things that we liked or we yearned or we wanted to express. And oftentimes as we get older, we've tuned that out, we haven't paid attention. But you do have something here. You've come into the planet to do something. And I can't tell you what it is. I'm trying to figure it out myself. I know I've changed course in my life 3 or 4 times because I listened to that. I didn't come here just to do one thing, nor did you. You're a multifaceted person, and there's lots of things you've come here to express. And the thing is, those are interesting questions to ask yourself because you'll find out whether you're living on track. If you meditate and you think, well, what have I come here to be? What have I come here to express? Are you doing things that bring you happiness? Is a question I'd ask you. Are you doing things that bring you joy? If you are, then keep doing it. If you're doing something that you hate, you're doing something that you like, and there's no joy in your life, then it's time to really, get in touch with yourself and ask yourself some of these questions. I was going to lead this talk because I went in a different direction with the lesson that I had from Barker. It's kind of like I was thinking of that song by Dolly Parton. She wrote that 9 to 5. You get up in the morning, the alarm clock's going, and here it is, it's 9 to 5. You're doing the same old thing. And somewhere in that song, there's a passage of, there's something else that you're working for whoever it is, but there's something else that you long to do. You've had a dream. What was your dream? What is your dream? What would you like to do? I'm reminded from a close friend of mine who passed away in 1990 that this is not a dress rehearsal. Okay, wherever you are in your life right now, this is it. These are the good old days, and if you're looking for your good to come down the road, chances are you're never going to experience your good. Jesus plainly said, and it's been said by many others, the kingdom of God is at hand. It's here, it's now, it's in you, it's operating through you. So if you want more, you want to tap into, you want to really find a way to slow down, maybe journal, maybe meditate, maybe ask of yourself, meditate upon the things that bring you joy and bring you happiness. Start there, because that might give you some clues as to what you might do. Some of you like teaching. Some of you like being involved in group work. Some of you like joining with others and like-minded people in book clubs, or Shirley and a few other people like reading to children. It doesn't really matter. What matters is you find the things that bring you happiness and start doing them. The people who are the happiest in life, I remember Barker clearly said, are the people who are the givers. And he was good about asking you to give your happy money at collection and stuff, but that isn't really what he was talking about. He said the people who are the happiest are not the people who are always looking out for number one. The people who are the happiest are the people who find ways to give. If you were in a 12-step program, they would say, give your time, your talent, and your money. Bill Tolliver, who was one of my great teachers, used to say, life loves a giver. He also told us, the religious scientists and truth students are the applauders of life. I must have heard him say that 1,000 times. What do you think he was saying when he was saying, people in this teaching are the applauders? He didn't say they were the complainers. He said they were the applauders. Think about that. And I used to have a friend, Pat, in Florida, and her whole thing was smiling at people and saying thank you. She would always nod, smile, say thank you. She would always, always, always do that. She was an applauder. Everybody loves her, too, to this day. Just completely. I would think of her, she's a person that just everybody loves, because she brings with her such a wonderful thing. She's happy, and she spreads it. I spoke last week about Edwene Gaines, because Edwene Gaines, she's a New Thought teacher. She's got to be getting up there a little bit now. She's senior to me, and she uses the word God and good interchangeably. The first time I met her, and I've seen her lots of times, she keeps on talking about God and good. She's looking to see the God and the good and the good and the God in everything. Because if you're really a practitioner of this teaching, you're training yourself to understand that God is what? Use the omnis. Omniscient, omnipotent. What's the rest?
Omnipresent.
Omnipresent. So this thing that we talk about is everywhere. It has all power, it has all intelligence, and it exists within us. And so if we have this thing within us, operating through us, we can turn to it. We have direct access to all the power and all the knowledge and all the information that you'll ever need. It's found where? Inside, so inquire within. And as we begin to tap into that, we will pave anew tomorrow. And we will clear the crap that we keep spinning. We'll stop the spinning. Whenever you find yourself going to the negative, expect more. Stop it. Stop in the name of love. Just simply stop it. Mid-sentence, say no. Stop in the name of love. When you find yourself going there, being critical of yourself or others, stop. And tell yourself something different. And say, look, I have all the power in the world in me, operating through me. I'm going to develop some bigger buckets. I'm going to dip into that consciousness, and I know all is well, and I'm going to expect more. Starting here, starting now. Again, in the talk I was reviewing this week of Barker's, he would say the same thing. Just stop it, wherever you are. You can draw upon this infinite well of love that he spoke of, Louise Hay spoke of, this infinite well of power and ability. It's all there. And he would ask, why would you reject your good? Why do you reject your good? And he said, we do it unconsciously. He says, because everything we do is unconscious. You can be, on that screen, you can talk about all the good stuff and you can exclaim it, you can have your affirmations, but beneath you is this unconscious, it's a lifetime of stuff, and we reject our good. You don't realize you're rejecting it. He says, we don't really use our conscious mind that much. So it's really important to start using our conscious mind more. If you're doing that 9 to 5 thing, like the song, you're getting up, the alarm clock, and you're just not using your mind, you're like kind of living your life by rote. It's kind of like it's just you're walking through your life, but you're not really aware. So find a way to become more conscious. I remember being a part of a prayer group where we'd tell ourselves we're going to set our watches every half an hour to do an affirmation, just to come out of that unconscious, I'm living, but I'm just responding to everything. We have power to use, but we have to be conscious. So Barker was making the point that we don't really use our conscious mind nearly as much as we could. Because if we use our conscious mind, we can be redirecting our minds. So if you can find a way to be conscious more often, you can do what? You can redirect your mind. So I don't know, maybe set up one of your apps or your phones to do it. When I was involved in the Course in Miracles, there was a time where every 15 minutes we'd have an affirmation throughout the day. Why? Because you make yourself conscious. Because some of us are living out our days unconsciously. Some of you might go a week or two, and then you show up in church and you're reminded of the things we talk about. So we can become more conscious. Maybe if you did daily meditation, you might be able to do it that way too. Meditation, journaling, any of it. Dr. Barker was saying some of you will turn into church on Sunday, and he says that's great, but that's not enough. It's good for an hour. He said, you're here and I'm here, and that's great. And so he said, today I'm going to talk to you and say that most of you don't expect enough from life. You just don't. I don't know why you don't, but you don't. You've lived and you've learned to have low expectations. Most of us don't set our sights very high. He said, we have played small in so many ways. And he said, I think the world and all we have been through has dulled our expectations. Many of us don't know that the sky is the limit and what's possible. Because we get into our individual routines, and he said our routines are deadly. Again, we get into our routines and they can be really deadly. They take you over, they run you. Now, you might have a routine where you go every morning to Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts, or you might make one egg and toast, or you have your little thing that you do every day. You might have been doing the same thing for the past 5 years, 10 years. This might have been the thing that you do, and you're not even conscious. You're blanked out, right? And he said, on the face of it, there's nothing wrong with it, except most of the time you're not conscious. You're just not conscious. You're doing it all by routine. And once in a while, he said, why not try something different? A different restaurant, a different coffee or tea or something. In the morning, take a different route if you're walking to the store. Take a different route if you're driving your car. And he said, if you do so, a different street, a different route, you're going to notice different things. It kind of like brings you alive. Now, you do it the other way, nothing's ever going to be new. But if you deliberately make yourself take new routes and start new things and just mix it up, he said, because when you're doing everything automatically, you're not really experiencing your surroundings the way you could be. So he said, we don't expect much, and that's the reason most people don't get much. So it's important to become more mindful, to break up the routines. We're all caught up in our routines, so it's good if we can change some of them around and in so doing, see more things and learn to develop positive expectancy. This might be new to some of you. Some of you are trained to see the worst. I know some of you very well. It's just every conversation is about what's wrong and what's missing. Some version of ain't it awful. Some version of poor me. Now, if I keep on doing that, if it's me, ain't it awful and poor me, what the heck do you think my life is going to look like? You might be able to put on a face to everybody, oh, I'm okay, I'm fine. That's the one people say, I'm fine. But underneath all that, there's a version of ain't it awful and poor me. See, that's deadly, deadly stuff if that's what you're doing. So you really want to do what with that? You just really want to stop it. Start working with the affirmations, and then learn how to do affirmative prayer. Start just wherever you're doing it and stop it. Okay? So this type of thinking might be new to you. I mean, Louise Hay would say, look, it's like cleaning a house. You just begin wherever you are. And some of you might be thinking, I can't listen to this guy. I can't listen to this teaching. It's too much. It's Pollyanna. You don't know. I have real problems. And now, and you want to really just dig into how awful and rotten life is. And you get away from these channels real quick because this teaching really causes you to think and just think, okay, my God, I'm creating this. I'm doing this to myself. So I'd rather go over someplace that's going to save me, where I don't have to do anything except, pray and be forgiven, and you're going to absolve me and tell me I'm okay. This teaching is different, okay? This teaching very plainly says God can't do for you what God can't do what? Yeah, God can't do for you what God can't do through you. So if you want to have the best, you got to become the best. You got to open yourself up to great things. You want to begin to have really positive expectations. You have to get involved in the work of saying no to the negatives. Now, you don't have to for me. I'm saying you have to do this if you want your life to what? To ascend, to move forward. You can stay doing the same thing you've always done. And if you say life is over and this is the way it is, you get to be right. That's the thing about this teaching. It's entirely up to you. But you can, if you really want to, according to everybody I've ever read, from Louise Hay to Ernest Holmes to Barker and all the others, and there's been many, you can really have it all. Reverend Ike used to say, you can't lose with the stuff we use. But it doesn't come to you just because you wishing and hoping. That's another talk one day I'll do, wishing and hoping. Forget it. Wishing and hoping isn't going to do much. It's nice to be hopeful, right? But in this teaching, we learn about a law. We learn that we have power. We learn that there's power in us, operating through us, and you can create the kind of life that you want. You can definitely expect more. But you have to do your part of it. All the power has been given to you. Okay, look, I am powerful. So powerful. Now you are. You have within you wisdom and knowledge and everything in the world to draw upon also. You're part of something that exists. See, the thing that animates me in front of this podium today is the very same thing that animates everybody that's listening. I can draw on. Sometimes I just have to stop myself. You see, you can draw on so much. So, it's yours to figure it out, It's really clear to me that if you go towards the other side, if you go towards what's wrong and what's missing and what's wrong with people, that's where it's a mistake. And I'll tell you my story that I've said many times to some of you before, but it was an important story for me. Bill Cameron was one of my first great influences, Reverend Bill. And he said to me, probably, I'll say 30 years ago, who knows, I forget anymore. He would say to me, Greg, I love psychology. I love studying the mind. I really did. He says, I got straight A's. And he says, and I found abnormal psychology fascinating. And he says, I got really so good at seeing what was wrong with people. He said I could classify it and diagnose it. And I wanted to go and get a PhD. And he said, one day, much like Paul on the road to Damascus, I was hit with a blinding light, which he said, I realized it just came to me that my whole approach is completely wrong. He said, I was so good at seeing what was wrong with people and diagnosing them. The Diagnostic Statistical Manual. Now I think it's in its 5th revision. He says, I just realized my whole life, he says, the whole orientation, the whole focus was wrong. He says, I'm here now to tell you that instead of seeing what's wrong with people, what we do here at Unity and what we do here in religious sciences, we've turned the focus away with what's wrong and what's missing towards what's whole and what's wonderful about people. Now, if you could take, that was a big lesson for me because I could be really critical, especially when I was younger too, critical of myself and critical of other people. This man was a very learned and very beautiful human being, and he said, we're here to lift people up, we're here to be lifters, and I'm here to see them as being whole and complete and good and supplied and supported in every single way. I'm not going to focus on what's wrong and what's missing. I'm going to focus on what's good and what's wonderful. We live and we move and we have our being in this loving energy. It's intelligent, it's creative energy, and it's a part of you. And it loves you, and it has infinite wisdom, and that infinite wisdom is in you. So that's the great news. That's something worth talking about. You don't need to go to those other places. You don't need to be a part of it. You can be like Agatha, when you don't know Agatha, but she's one of our senior practitioners, minister practitioners, and she's always working on herself whenever you talk to her. That's what we do here. We keep on lifting ourselves up. We keep on changing the lesser ideas that we have for the greater. That's our focus. We keep on practicing the presence. What does that mean? It means every encounter you have is what? It's a holy encounter. You might say, oh, that sounds so religious, Greg. Okay, we don't have to be religious, but it's a fact. We don't have to sound all religious. But the thing is, we live, we move, we have our being in this divine energy. Deepak Chopra would call it a unitary field. We live in it, we breathe in it, it animates us. We have no business judging another human being in the world anywhere, because we truly know that all of life is moving forward by means of this divine energy, which inspires and guides people throughout the world. It doesn't matter that they look at it from a different direction than us. It's just gratifying to know and wonderful to know that every one of us is connected to everyone else. And life moves forward collectively by means of each and every one of us. And whatever role you're playing is important. And it could be exciting. There is an attorney friend of mine that for many years she always said, the final chapter has not been written for any of us. And it doesn't matter what's happened before, really, because it's brought you to the place where you are now. The thing is, you've been given a tremendous gift, this power you have to use. So why not use it? Starting here, starting now. It's entirely up to you. You have everything you need. And so ends today's lesson. Thank you.